Good evening, and welcome to the podcast Compels You, the show in which we review horror movies in pairs according to our current cursed category. A cursed category handed to us by our evil AI overlord consists of two requirements for a movie. We have to find two horror movies that fulfill both requirements and review them with you, or else. There's two movies, there's two requirements, we have a lot of twos in this podcast. That is my co-host Bill laughing, and I'm your other host, Stacy. How are you tonight, Bill?
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
living. I'm here, you know.
I guess that's a good thing. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's about the most I can say about that
that's a
given
blessing and a curse, this
yeah,
existence. So
given the week that we've had here in the United States. I'm doing all right given the circumstances. How are you, Stacy?
I have no idea what you're talking about. But
No, of course not.
yeah, I'm doing all right. I did see Smile 2 that I think I forgot to talk about it last.
Yeah, you didn't talk about it.
If I did, I'm going to talk about it again. I think the first one was better. That's my conclusion.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I thought there was too many threads going on in the plot. Like they
Hmm.
tried to do too much with like trauma and like her mom issues, which the first one had mom issues, but it was very like focused.
Mm-hmm.
This had this whole like stage mom thing, and she was kind of being forced to be this performer. And I also thought like she was less relatable as the famous protagonist than like the regular person protagonist, who seemed much more isolated and like with fewer resources. That said, I think there was a great deal of like psychological horror that I found interesting and enjoyable. I had a good time. Not the perfect movie. It also felt like it could have been edited down a little and better. But I wouldn't skip it. I do recommend if you like the first one, I think it's worth the watch.
I heard that everything was kind of like a bigger version of the movie. Like everything was kind of expanded, which based on what you're saying, maybe that's correct. Like it's kind of a larger movie.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I felt like there was some inconsistency in the rules of how the monster worked. The
Hmm,
first
interesting.
movie and the second movie, they also redid the monster visually, which I don't think there was anything wrong with it last time. So I don't know. That's a choice
I thought that was one of the strengths of it actually was the monster towards the end. I think you see it, right? In the first one.
at the very end.
Yeah. I thought that was one of the strengths actually was that portion. So that's kind of a
I thought it
bummer
was the
they
cool monster.
yeah.
A lot of people hated it, but whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, I saw that, and then there was the whole horror show of the U.S. election, which like if I could give it 0 stars, I would. Definitely do not recommend. Moving on, I
Yep.
do have tickets for Heretic this weekend. That will be nice
Nice.
and hopefully cathartic.
Oh yeah. Hugh
Come on,
Grant,
Hugh
man.
Grant, deliver that villainy goodness. I'm hoping that this is like him entering a new era of his life. Because I mean, not to be ageist, but I think not being a rom com fan myself, I think he's pretty much aged out of like the typical rom com. I don't know. I know it's more flexible for men than women.
Yeah, he'll still have a little gas in the tank, probably for like Hallmark type movies. Like, yeah, you can get away with that as an older man, I think.
Yeah.
Like, he'll just have a 30 something year old, love
Ugh,
interest, that kind of thing, probably. But I agree. He's been
Lord.
pigeonholed for a while. I'd love if he got a little bit weird in his old age, do some more artsy stuff. That'd be great.
In the trailer, they have this one shot of him saying something awful and villainous, and then he makes that like really quick apologetic like Hugh Grant face. That's
Oh,
like
yeah, I know
straight from
exactly
the
what you
rom
mean.
com. I'm like, oh my god, that is classic. That could not be an accident.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be awesome. I'm excited to see that also.
What about you? You seen anything good?
Yeah, so I've seen actually a couple of straight to Netflix movies, strangely enough. The first one is called Don't Move. Have you heard of this?
Maybe.
So it's produced by Sam Raimi, which I gotta say, I don't know if it's false advertising or maybe it sets up false expectations. Again, only produced by him, not directed or anything like
Yeah,
that.
like his name is on it.
Exactly. It has a very unique premise, and it stars Finn Wittrock, he's been in a bunch of American Horror seasons. I really like him. He's a great actor. It just doesn't deliver. It's one of these movies. Again, I hate when movies have a really good premise and it just fucks them up, or they just get really boring like halfway through. It's kind of like a cat and mouse chase with like a little bit of a twist. It's usually kind of the thing that's in my wheelhouse. I like that kind of thing. It's just like It's not a very deep movie, but this one just kind of bored me, honestly. I was a little bit disappointed. So I definitely would not recommend Don't Move. The other one is kind of, I don't know if you call it a horror movie. It's kind of maybe, I don't know, true crime-ish. It's called Woman of the Hour, and it's directed by Anna Kendrick. It's her first directorial, or I should say, not her first directorial debut, her directorial debut. It's based on a true story from 1978. I think it was The Dating Game. Do you remember that show? Not that you would probably
Kind
apply
of.
for it, but
Like,
yeah,
I probably remember more like references and like parodies of it than.
yes, and yeah, so you get the idea. Like, there's three contestants. Anyway, apparently, there's a true story of one of the male contestants was ended up being a serial killer.
Oh my
And
God.
so she's the woman that's like, the one picking the guy. So it's this whole thing, and you already know he's a serial killer, and you see her like selecting him, and it just becomes this really
Mm,
creepy movie. Really good. I didn't know what to expect. I actually listened to Anna Kendrick talk about it on some random podcast, and I'm like, I should check that out. And it actually panned out. So Don't Move, I would not recommend, but I would recommend Woman of the Hour. Both are on Netflix.
I'm not familiar with Woman of the Hour at all. Does it feel like a real horror movie, or is it more like a thriller or true crime like fictionalization?
I would
You
say
know.
more true crime thriller. With a There's some horror elements, I would say. The more we do this podcast, is like the grayer the line in my mind becomes
Very
between
fuzzy.
horror and like every other genre. Because realistically, not a lot of movies truly scare me, but like, so there's like different ways that I react to movies, and it's hard to categorize those into horror or not horror because thrillers do that a lot to me. It's kind of like the adrenaline thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Should I introduce our new series?
Yeah, why not?
I'm so excited. So, our new series, which Stacy has titled The Gravying, dives into Thanksgiving themed films with a vengeful twist. Tonight, we're covering 2023's Thanksgiving, written and directed by Eli Roth, known for Hostel, The Green Inferno, Cabin Fever, and a bunch of others. Also co written by Roth and Jeff Rendell, who also wrote the original short film that this is based on. The cast includes Patrick Dempsey, Gina Gershon, Rick Hoffman, and rising stars like Nell Verlaque, Addison Rae, Jalen Thomas Brooks, Milo Manheim, and Tommaso Sinelli. There's just tons of characters in this movie, I gotta say, which I'm going to talk about more during our
So
summary
many.
of it. It's inspired by a fake trailer that Roth created for 2007's Grindhouse, and the film was shot in Toronto and Hamilton, Ontario. It was released in March 2023, and it received generally positive reviews as kind of like a gory, over the top grindhouse romp. It grossed just under $47 million on a $15 million budget. So, Stacy, have you seen Thanksgiving prior to viewing it for this show?
I had not. I honestly didn't care about it when I first heard about it because I didn't expect it to have any like viewing value, honestly. Like just
Sure.
based on what I heard. But then I started hearing that it was actually good and, you know, horror fans were enjoying it as,
Hmm.
you know, meaningful entry in the genre. So I did put it on my to be watched list, but that is how long my to be watched list is. Some of the movies on there have now been on there for more than a year. So because I had not seen this one before, here are three things I expected to see in the movie.
Ooh.
I don't think I did very well. The first thing is like very specific. Someone has planned out their Black Friday purchases with a specialized app designed for that purpose. Do you remember when that started being a thing? Have you been exposed to this idea?
No, not the app thing. No.
Apps that get all the deals from all the places and you can organize them by what time you have to be at the store. And I don't
Oh,
think this is
wow.
such a big deal anymore because I don't
No.
really think people are going out like that. But for a while it was a thing to do.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then number two was gross, annoying drunk uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. I don't really think we had that.
No, the dinner's a little short. There's not a lot of.
Right. Yeah, it was shorter than I imagined. But
Sure.
yeah. The last one, though, I think I
Uh
did
huh.
pretty well. Someone is skewered or maimed by a cooking instrument other than just a knife.
Nice. Yeah, you saved yourself with that one, I think.
Phew.
Those are good. I like that.
I believe you had also not seen this one before. Am I correct?
You are correct. Yeah, kind of like you. I this one just kind of came and went. I was actually going to ask you, what's your background, your familiarity with Eli Roth and his films?
I am not really usually into his normal thing.
Okay.
I did know about it being a fake trailer, and I thought the fake trailers were pretty funny,
Hmm.
what I'd seen of them. Although I think like the story that they had planned for this one did not end up being the story that they used at all.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't know what to expect really.
Okay. I only asked because this is one of those movies where it kind of led with the director when I heard about it because it's like Eli Roth Thanksgiving. It's one of those. He's obviously a pretty big horror director, and he's kind of like you either love him or you hate him. I feel like there's not a lot in the middle with him because he's very kind of like blatant with his films. Like
Yeah.
he writes really unlikable characters. He's known for
Mhm.
that. He has really interesting premises for his movies, for sure. And he's definitely got a unique style. And yeah, he kind of helped create the torture porn, quote unquote, genre with
Yeah,
like
that's the thing.
Hostel.
Mm.
But I gotta say, I like Eli Roth. He's kind of like a student of horror. Like he knows his horror movies really well. Like if you listen to interviews
Yes.
with him,
Got the
um,
idea from this movie that he did.
yes, absolutely. So like he's definitely like a horror fans director. Doesn't always hit the mark for sure, but I always am interested to kind of see what he comes up with. I kind of liken him to like Rob Zombie as a director, where like he's also a
Interesting.
huge fan of horror movies,
Mm.
writes really unlikable characters, has a very unique style,
Very niche.
very niche.
Not everybody's thing.
No, but the people that like him like are obsessed with his movies.
Totally.
I really don't like Rob Zombie's movies. Like he
Yeah.
redid Halloween, which was like the nail in the
Oh my
coffin.
God. Yeah.
So like those are two directors, Eli Roth and Rob Zombie, who are kind of approach things similarly, but I actually do really like Eli Roth and some of his movies. So I will say that. Not big into like torture porn, but I think the ideas for his movies are kind of very interesting always, even if the movies aren't perfect. So yeah, long story short, I had not seen this film. I did not come up with three things I expected to see because I have listened to podcasts about this film. So I feel like
Oh,
I know a little too much.
you recused yourself.
I recused myself. There you go. But I did not remember who the killer was. So
Oh,
thank God,
nice.
because that's what makes these movies obviously so much fun. So yeah, that's kind of where I land on that. Stacy, do you have any content warnings for this movie? I can't imagine there's anything that would turn someone off from this movie.
I'm actually going to be pretty general about it
Okay,
and then trust people to look things up on their own that they're worried about. But I did have a fun fact I wanted to mention before I get
cool.
into
Fire
content
away.
warnings. So probably everyone else knows this, but I learned that Patrick Dempsey, who plays the sheriff in this movie, is famous for being a doctor on that show Grey's Anatomy, which I've never seen. But this role earned him the funny nickname of Dr. McDreamy, which I assume refers to his physical appearance, but I don't really get it. Like, at least in this movie, he's not all that. I mean, also, it's been a long time since that show was on the air, I think. So,
And I think it ran for like dozens of seasons. But yeah, I think
generations, yeah.
yeah, he was quite a bit younger back then. I don't know. I mean, he was good looking. I don't know. Yeah, I do remember it being Dr. Big Dreamy or whatever.
I don't think they tried to make him dreamy in this movie because he's just kind of like a sheriffy character
Yeah.
without giving away too much. Yeah. So, content warnings. The main content warning is this movie is a modern slasher. You can expect a lot of violence and gore. Victims are killed in a number of creative ways with various weapons and instruments. Many of the deaths are pretty realistic looking, some of them are not. If you wish to not view deaths involving any particular methods or body parts, I recommend looking this movie up on doesthedogdie.com because I think in this case, as with like a lot of slashery movies, like giving away the specifics of kills is spoilery, especially in this one, I think, because it's pretty creative. How did I do?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into when you watch a movie like this, I think. It kind of runs the gamut, I gotta say, in terms of, you know, content and gore and all that jazz. So yeah, I think you nailed it.
People are eventually at the end, like, there's some people that get tied up and have to watch some scary things happen in real life. That's one
Hmm.
thing I forgot to write. Yeah, some people don't like the being tied up scenes. So
Sure. That's fair.
that's all I got.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to our dark fact of the day.
Dark fact.
So tonight, instead of just revisiting the dark history of Thanksgiving and the genocide of Native Americans, all the usual stuff.
Pretty fucking dark.
Yeah, very dark. We could go on and on about that. But instead, I'm going to bring you a chilling fact from the Jamestown settlers. So Jamestown was founded in 1607, and the early colonists, they struggled to hunt, farm, or trade effectively with Native Americans. Can't imagine why. I guess Captain John Smith was like one of the only ones that actually had like some sort of rapport with the Native Americans and was actually able to like initiate some trade. He died in 1609 and all trade ceased, and the colony descended into what they called the starving time. So this was the winter of 1609, and with few resources left, the settlers resorted to cannibalism, even attempting to remove the brains from the deceased, which apparently were like the best thing to eat.
Oh my god, that's gross.
By the spring, when reinforcements arrived, only 60 of the original 300 settlers had survived. So there you go.
You should make a horror movie about that.
Oh, abso-freaking-lutely. There's plenty of material from around that time. I was reading all about it, and it's just like, it's a shit show. But yeah, so there's your uplifting dark fact of the day. So we're going to have a brief musical interlude, and then we will be back with a spoilerific plot discussion of Thanksgiving. So stick around. Welcome back to the show. We are now going to go through our spoilerific plot discussion of Thanksgiving. So I'm going to hand it over to Stacy.
That's my name. And here is the plot of Thanksgiving 2023. It is the evening of Thanksgiving, of course, in Plymouth, Massachusetts, of course, a significant Thanksgiving-y place.
Very.
Sheriff Eric Newlin shows up at the front door of Mitch's house, another character, where they are serving up turkey and tension. Dun dun
Da,
dun.
da,
So
da.
most of the main characters are here, but there are a lot of characters, so not all of them are there. So there's Thomas, who is a Right Mart magnate, and his newest wife, Kathleen, who has like evil stepmother vibes right
Yes.
away. There's also Thomas's daughter, Jessica, who isn't super interested in family friends Thanksgiving experience. She's already like making plans to run off to the movies with
Yep.
her boyfriend Bobby, who in 2023 in a movie who is a young person like college age is named Bobby.
Dang it, Bobby.
I didn't even know anyone my age ever named Bobby. Bobbies are only
No.
like in old movies.
Or even like Bob. I don't think I knew anybody named Bob. Like
I
Robert,
knew
we
a
had a few
Rob.
Roberts. Yes,
Rob,
Robs we had.
that's modern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Weird.
I found that distracting.
By the way, I have my iPad up with a picture of the entire cast and their names.
Is there like 100 of them?
Yes, because I'm going to need to be referring to that
Yeah.
throughout this
Please
movie.
help me keep them straight.
I'll do
Oh,
my
so
best.
what I was confused about, and I had to like go back and watch it, was like, so Mitch answers the door and his wife is making the meal, but then like Thomas seems like he's presiding over the feast.
Yeah, he's sitting in the big boy seat at the end of
Yeah,
the table.
but it's
Yeah.
not his so it's kind of weird. So Thomas is like the big dog there, and then
Yes.
Mitch is a manager of one of his stores or his
Correct.
store. One of
Yes.
his store. I assumed it was a chain. They make it look like it's a Walmart kind of thing.
Yeah. I think there's only the one store. I mean, I may be wrong. Or he's probably a franchise owner, maybe. Like there's probably others, but he only owns the one. I don't know.
Yeah, not sure. Not sure if it matters even. But he is supposed to be like pretty rich in the movie. Like there's
Yes.
reference to him living in a mansion.
The guy who plays Thomas is in Hostel. He has a very identifiable face. Like he's
Yeah, kind of a character actor kind of seeming guy.
yes, exactly. Although he hasn't I was looking at his filmography. I don't recognize him from that much. He was in Suits, the show, which I never watched, but I've seen advertisements, and then Hostel. Those are the two. So Mitch is not related in any way. Mitch is
They're
just like
not
a
related. Yeah.
friend, like a manager, like his
So they're
go-to
having
guy at
this
the store.
weird, like not related Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
And then the sheriff is also there, who's not related,
right.
but I think he like helps out with security at the store. He's like he's on good terms with the families.
I was getting like a small town feel here. Like, oh, the sheriff's coming over for Thanksgiving. Like a very,
Yeah. I don't know
like
anything
everyone
about
knows
Plymouth,
everyone.
but
No.
yeah, at least in this circle, things seem like that.
Yeah,
Anyway, I do approve of Jessica's plans to go see movies with her friends because I think that's a great way to spend Thanksgiving.
for
I was
sure.
hoping they would be seeing a horror movie, but as you'll find out, we never got to know.
No.
So, Mitch, who I remind you manages Thomas's store or one of Thomas's stores, has just found out that he's been dragged into early Black Friday duty. So the movie is starting to disparage here the American phenomenon of Black Friday shopping deals encroaching on actual Thanksgiving Day itself,
Hmm.
with businesses opening and luring shoppers in literally while the turkey is still on the table. So, by the way, I saw this phenomenon like happen a few years ago, like in my own family, when we actually used to celebrate before things happened and the entire family fell apart.
Sure.
So I would remember my cousins like looking at their watches and looking at those apps like during the entire Thanksgiving dinner. Like meanwhile,
Uh-huh.
my elderly grandmother staring down the end of her life and hardly ever gets to see us.
Oh,
I found this very fucking obnoxious.
yeah.
And then like they would often leave like before dessert because they had to get somewhere by 7 or something, by 6. So I do agree with the movie that this is a very obnoxious trend, but economy wise, I feel like the real peak of this might have been like back in the 2000s, and that it was like even when technology was beginning to facilitate the in-store shopping, like the
Hmm.
trend was already dying of stores opening on Thanksgiving because it was kind of like the last dying gasp of brick and mortar retailers trying to hold
Right.
on and hold off against online holiday shopping. So at least in my personal experience, that trend has reversed in more recent years. For me, though, there's like no Black Friday deal good enough to lure me out of the house on either
No.
Thanksgiving or Black Friday. In fact, like in general, if I can't order it online, I'm probably not going to buy it at
I was
all.
just gonna say it takes a lot to get me to the store. Have you ever bought anything on Black Friday? Do you recall? Like any big deals?
I feel like I remember going with my mom, but maybe I was just remembering Christmas shopping. It may not have been on Black Friday. Like I remember times being very crowded, but like
Sure.
as an adult with purchasing power, no, I've never chosen to do that.
I remember going one time. It was, and this is gonna tell you how long ago this was. I think it was Kohl's or some store was selling DVD players, like small individual DVD players. And my mom was like, "We need to get these." So like my sister, her, we all went. We ended up getting like four of these, and it was the dumbest thing in the world. Like, why the hell are we doing this? And then one other time in my adult life, I went the next day to go get like a PlayStation, and it was like, oh God, the doors opened at 5 in the morning. I went at like 5 in the evening, and there was just a stack of them. I just walked in, bought it, and walked out. There was nobody
Oh,
there.
amazing.
It was one of those. I'm like, I'm not waking up early to do this crap. I don't care enough. But yeah, I think Amazon absolutely killed Black Friday, and you know, was the death toll.
Amazon kills a lot of stuff, but that's another
Yeah.
topic for another horror movie.
And even in this movie, I think they said something like, well, people were already starting to line up at 6 o'clock, so we might as well just open. Like, so that's their idea. It's like the people are driving Black Friday. Like they're already getting lined up, so they might as well just open the store and make more money. So it's kind of, again,
Yeah.
who's driving the Black Friday, you know,
And that's
holiday.
interesting as we like see the blame shifting around
Yes.
in this movie. Like, whose fault is it really, or is it all of us?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
So anyway, we digress. Um, so Jessica and
Bobby.
Bobby, who's visiting from the 1970s,
Yes.
finally liberate themselves from Thanksgiving, and he's even got like a 1980s kind of like mullet haircut. Like
Yes, he
looks like a
does.
baseball player,
Hmm.
except he doesn't look as like fit and muscular, I don't think.
Right. It's kind of a little guy.
Yeah. But little guys can be good baseballers,
True, for sure. He's a pitcher
I think. I mean, it helps to have longer legs for running fast, but
and longer arms for throwing, but
not everybody has to be a pitcher, right?
nah,
That's not
nah,
how it works.
nope.
Except Bobby did have to be a pitcher. He had to. That's important for later.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So, these kids, these couple of crazy kids. Sorry, that's ableist.
Couple? You mean like six? Oh, sorry, we haven't gotten
Well,
to the
hold
car
on, I'm
yet.
getting there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so excited
Couple
to
of
talk about all these teens.
wild kids head out from Thanksgiving and join their friends whose names I have written down: Evan, Gabby, Scuba, and Yulia. But it wouldn't make for much of a movie plot if they just went to the movies. Everything proceeded as expected. So that's definitely not what happens. And like this movie is still lacking an inciting event to launch the plot.
Sure.
So they've got to make a detour. Well, Evan decides that they're going to make a detour.
And why do they make a detour?
Are they getting snacks to take in the movies?
No, this is the weirdest
Can't remember.
thing. So Evan goes, "Oh, hold on. I need to go buy a phone real quick."
Oh, right, because he explains something dumb happened to his phone.
Yeah, like what a weird thing to just pop off and do before you head to the movies. I gotta go buy a phone real quick on Black Friday. I just
I
thought that
think
was the
this is
strangest
an instance of, like
excuse.
you said, like a very unlikable character. This
Yes.
is a minor character, but he's exceptionally unlikable.
Yeah. I would say he's probably the most unlikable out of all of these.
Yeah, they head straight over to Insight Mart. I mean, Right Mart, and since Jessica, privileged daughter of the Right Mart Empire, can get them inside, they figure, hey, why not sneak into the store for a little pre-store opening Black Friday shopping session? I
Hmm.
decide that I hated Evan as soon as he like peeled out and drove over the curb. And so he drives recklessly. Not only that, he parks in a disabled spot, which is the
Yep.
true evil in this movie. I also dislike Bobby because Jessica, who I think, we're supposed to like,
Sure.
she's all right. She's like, hey, you can't park your car here. Bobby says, and he's not even driving. He's like, it's not a car, it's an SUV. Fuck you. And then to make Bobby like more unlikable, he gets mobbed by like people on the way in who are like wanting selfies because he's a local baseball celebrity.
Right.
He's also a very jealous boyfriend, and I don't like that type at all.
No, not at all.
So I thought the whole like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I thought the whole Bobby Ryan thing was just so stupid.
I
Like,
agree.
let's hate each other because we dated the same girl, not even at the same time. But
You guys
whatever.
are in high school. Chill out.
Aren't they out of high school though? That's the thing. I thought they were
No.
supposed to be out
No, they end up at the high school, don't they?
for investigative purposes. But okay, maybe that's true. Oh yeah, you're right. Because there's a whole thing with Evan like plagiarizing an essay, which is
Oh
another
yeah.
thing. I fucking hate plagiarists.
We'll get there. We'll get
I
there.
want a whole slasher where plagiarists die. Can we have that,
Ooh.
please? A very, very literary slasher.
He gets his in this though, because of
He certainly
plagiarism.
does.
So
Yeah.
how the turntables.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It wasn't even important to the plot, but I'm so
No.
glad that it was included. Meanwhile, outside the store, like there's already a mob of customers that have assembled in preparation to hit the ground, literally running as soon as the doors open.
Yeah.
And then we have like the contrast of inside the store, it's empty and clean, and like people are getting set up, and there is some like stress, like it's a pizza oven. What where do you think it goes? Something like that.
It's a waffle iron.
Well, there's a pizza oven too.
Oh, is there? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about though. I think like with the mob outside and the empty store inside, it's totally like with the lighting, it's really giving like Major Dawn of the Dead for me.
Oh yeah,
And
good call.
I have to believe that's not an accident,
Yeah.
knowing this director.
Yes.
So the crowd is like getting pretty unruly already. And then so there's this other kid from a different high school named Lonnie. So many
Yes.
characters. And he sees these kids inside getting to shop before everyone else gets to. And he points it out and like yells at the security guard and gets the crowd super riled up, and everyone starts shouting to be let in. It just escalates from there, and then
Hmm.
we see Jessica and her friends inside, and they are watching the crowd like press harder and harder against that door,
Yeah, it's
and it
intense.
starts to crack. And then the moment we've been waiting for, that it's been building up to, glass shatters and like chaos completely explodes inside as the
Yes.
crowd stampedes into the store. So like right away, the stampede like floods the store, and the security guard, Doug, who's been like standing at the door that
Hmm.
cracked, the entire door with the glass panes like falls on top of him, and the crowds run on top of it. So he's like completely trampled underfoot. He's a goner. And one unlucky shopper gets his neck slashed with broken glass.
Oh
Um,
man. Oh, one thing to add too, Amanda goes to bring Mitch
yes.
dinner because that
Yeah, I
he has
mentioned
he
that.
has to
Yep.
work that night. Oh, I didn't know if you mentioned that.
Oh,
Yeah, so
yeah.
Amanda's inside the store also.
This
She's
has
just
happened. Yeah, she's already arrived, which
yes.
I'm not gonna like put everything exactly in the right spot
Oh,
because
that's okay. There's a lot
there's a
going on
a
here.
lot of people and things going on. But yes. So in the chaos, like Bobby is trying to, I think, help the security guard, and he gets his wrist stomped on, and it's completely crushed. And
Yeah,
like
it's gnarly.
it's a weird. I'm not sure how realistic the injury is, but the fact that it's his wrist is an important detail for later because remember he's
Yes.
a pitcher.
Yes.
And then poor Amanda, who, like you said, had just come by to drop something off to Mitch. She's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like she has nothing to do with this Black Friday
Mm.
stuff, but she gets like shoved to the ground. Her skull gets crushed between two shopping carts, and then a shopping cart like partially scalps her in a very horrific practical effect.
Like her hair gets caught in a wheel, right?
Yes. Oh
Which is kind
God.
of funny, not funny. It's like
It is a little
I've
funny.
used carts where like they're
The wheels
janky and
are
you look
fucked
down and
up,
it's
but
just all fucked
shit
up. It's
jammed in
like
there.
I could totally see this. Again, it's a weird thing to say, but
I
I
think we
understand.
all could. That's
Yes.
part of it.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's so visceral when you're like, "Oh God, it's like scalping her." Not great.
While this is still going on, like Mitch finds Amanda's body, and understandably, he's like shocked and devastated. And the sheriff notices, I think, that this has happened, and then he
Mhm.
fires, into the ceiling, triggering the bloody title card, which I thought was a very nice
I
touch.
like
Yeah.
this a lot. And one more thing too, Evan is recording this whole thing too,
He's
which
like
kind of
standing on a what do you call it? Like the counter, one of the counters, checkout counters,
checkout counters, yeah. So again, just total douche
really being
nozzle
an
here.
asshole. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they keep telling him to get down, and he's like, no, gotta get the footage or whatever.
And even earlier in the movie, he's talking about how he beat up someone from a rival school, but his girlfriend wasn't filming it because he's like, it would have gone viral. So this dude's just like attention whore, just wants like
Mm.
everything. He just wants to go viral. He wants to film everything. Again, just everything he does.
There's so much unlikable about him, like I couldn't even fit it all in,
Yeah, I
honestly.
think they put all the unlikable qualities on this one character, it seems like.
And he's not even in that many scenes.
No, he's not. I thought he was gonna be a bigger character.
I must say, like, this is not my kind of movie, but I thought the entire Black Friday Stampede scene was really well done.
I
Like,
agree.
this is something that these movie makers are really good at doing. They made the crowd feel like very dangerous in
Hmm.
their frenzy, like almost inhuman
Right.
in their search for deep discounts. And the injuries are not like super weird or played for like gore, but they
Right.
seem like fresh and creative, kind of not super predictable, like while
Sure.
still believable. And there are so many like little humorous touches that also kind of feel like similar in tone to Dawn of the Dead. Like guy finally gets his hands on the waffle iron that he's after, and then he collapses and succumbs to his injuries. And then someone
Yeah.
else snatches it from his, I guess, dead body or unconscious body. What did you think about this scene, this whole megalomart?
I loved it. And I agree with you about the humor too. That's what got me like the other security guard, like the heavier set one, not Doug. I'm looking at my list. Manny, who comes up later
Lanny,
in the
Lonnie.
movie.
Oh, there's also a Lonnie. Jesus.
Oh yeah, Lonnie's from the rival school. Manny
Manny
is
and
the
Lonnie. That's
security guard with like the
too much.
security yellow jacket. But like
Yeah.
I love it. And that's another thing. Eli Roth does do a lot of like kind of dark humor and kind of silly humor in his movies. And I think it worked really well here. This is like the perfect like ramping up opening sequence, I thought. And
Yes.
it just kind of got right into it. And like you said, the title card, super great, kind of like throwbacky, kind of, I don't know, had a lot of style. I like that.
So after the title card, we get a title card that tells us 1 year has passed. 1 year later,
1 year later.
a convenient TV news segment catches us up on just about everything. I love how
Yep.
that didn't waste
Exposition.
any time. Yeah,
Nope.
perfect. Just give it to us.
Yep.
It's not what we're here for. So the store is gearing up for yet another Black Friday blowout because apparently some traditions are just too profitable to get rid of. And so Mitch, of course, is no longer employed by the store. He hates Thomas. He's super pissed off, and he's become like the loudest voice against Kmart and its
Hmm.
owner, Thomas, which is all part of this news segment, conveniently. Because it turns out, like, after all of that, after the bloodshed, like, not a single arrest was made. They didn't
Hmm.
bring this up, but I'm guessing there were no, like, civil suits or anything
Right.
that led anywhere.
And apparently the cameras had malfunctioned,
The
so it's like,
security footage
yeah,
is conveniently missing. So, like,
uh-huh.
is there any justice in this world? The
Apparently
answer
not.
is no. No, there is not.
Oh, there is
But is
not.
there any justice in this movie? The answer is not yet.
Not yet.
Meanwhile, there we go again with that word. Meanwhile,
Meanwhile.
Bobby from the 1970s, his mullet has weirdly disappeared from the old crew entirely, which
Hmm.
is one of the plot points that I find the most annoying and it's like hardest for me to believe. So I guess his entire personality was baseball, and since
Hmm.
his injury was career ending, like that also made him give up all of his friends and ghost his girlfriend. Like, I agree that the friends are not the best, but Jessica was probably like the best thing in his life.
Oh, for sure. Well, and he's also, again, he was in high school. So him and his family left.
Oh, he
Again, you're
dropped
not really
out,
on
or
your own yet. Yeah. It's weird. He
yeah.
went to go work for his uncle's tow truck company.
Remember, this is an homage, and in traditional like 80s slashers, like the teenagers are like 35. They're like
True.
very,
Okay.
very independent.
Yeah, that's
So
true. They could just be
these are
playing
kind
on
of
that.
those kind of kids, kind of.
Yes. Right.
It's a little mixed.
Sure.
But anyway, Jessica has moved on and she's now dating Ryan, which is going to be held against her because, you know, she should just keep pining away for the old boyfriend. Why should she move on?
Sure.
What kind of a girl is she?
Did you notice they really leaned heavily into Ryan being very mischievous? Like
Yep. Yeah.
they really wanted to throw him up there as a suspect. I don't know.
Yeah. They really like shifted suspicion around a lot. Like there's
Yes.
so many suspects.
Where it's almost like you can't even guess because there's just so many, and they do such a good job of like, is it? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I appreciate that.
The person I watched the movie with guessed.
Oh, really?
We're talking about exceptional, like professional level movie watchers here.
Okay. I fell for a few of the red herrings. I'll say
I
that.
did not guess, which really surprised me
I didn't
because
either.
I'm usually a very dedicated guesser.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I collect the clues and everything. I'm very serious about that.
sure.
This one was very zany, though. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, Thomas has plans to film a Black Friday family commercial, but his plans are stymied by the fact that someone has completely vandalized the cabin where they had planned to film. That person has also taken Chekhov's axe down from the literal mantle, which is
Uh-huh.
where the original Chekhov's rifle was located. You can't
Right.
tell me that's an accident. Come on. Come
No, no, no.
on.
Was there any significance to this cabin? I mean, it comes up a little bit later, but was
I
this
think
just like a
it's a
filming look?
historical building
Okay. Gotcha. I knew
because
there was
remember,
something.
the sheriff is there and he's like, I've got to report that a historical landmark was
Good call. Okay.
vandalized and something about
Right.
the charges. Yeah.
Okay.
So some piece of Plymouth history, although it didn't look that old.
Now,
I don't think they had access to actual historical landmarks.
now I'm sure they
But
didn't.
yeah. So I might skip like a couple of scenes here and there, but I
Sure.
tried to like hit what was important. The friend group is at the diner, the teenage friends, and they cross paths with Bobby, who's back.
Right.
And everyone is surprised. There's some tension, but before they address that, like all of their phones light up with a notification. They've all been tagged in a post from someone named John Carver, like John
Hmm.
Carver the Pilgrim.
Right.
And whoever the poster is, they clearly have something twisted planned for this Thanksgiving. Also, the movie is titled Thanksgiving. So there's that.
Woohoo. Knock that one out early. Is this the first time we see the John Carver mask
Yeah,
during
so I
this
was gonna
scene?
say I think it's right now when Jessica sees somebody in a Carver mask staring at them from like across the street through the window. It's hard to say because like somebody's already made a comment that like these masks are being passed out. There's
Right.
a lot of people with the mask, which we didn't actually see that many people with the mask. I thought it was going to be like Happy Death Day,
Yes.
like
The
everyone's
baby
wearing the
mask.
mask, and I'm like they stole that, but they didn't.
I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I thought this was a very Halloween-esque homage. because again, Michael Myers standing outside. She looks out the
Oh yeah,
window, then he's gone.
yeah,
This was, I don't know. Again, that's kind of a general trope now in movies. So, but I thought it was kind
yeah.
of fun.
And I did find the mask somewhat creepy.
I agree. That's one of the things when I saw the preview for this movie when it came out, I'm like, looks kind of silly, but in
I
the
thought so too.
movie, it actually kind of works.
Yeah, they do it well.
Hmm.
This guy knows what he's doing with like making things creepy and uncanny and
Yes.
scary with all the tricks.
And I think it's the whole outfit too. Just the mask doesn't do it, but the whole thing, I think, kind of works for me. The whole getup.
Right after we see the John Carver mask guy, it cuts to a shot of someone like watching on their laptop some news footage that has the server from the diner that has just passed by the table, and she was also like one of the key players in the big Black Friday mob.
Hmm.
And then there's a shot of an axe getting grinded. Someone has an axe to grind.
Oh, I like that. He's in his like workshop. There's always like a workshop scene where like the killer's in his workshop.
Yes. And what a workshop it turns out to be. But
Oh yeah.
late at night at the same diner, Lizzie, that's the server's name
Oh,
who
good
was
call.
in the news footage,
Yes.
happens to be the one who had her hands on the shopping cart that scalped Amanda, if I am not mistaken,
Yes, I believe you're right.
is just finishing up her shift, closing down, wiping counters, totally unaware that she's about to get a surprise visit, but we know it's coming.
Oh yeah.
Enter the killer in the creepy Carver mask, lunges and slashes her. She reels back, then he grabs her and shoves her face first into a sink full of water. I mean, he could have ended it there,
Right.
but no, he drags her dazed and gasping to the freezer. And here's one of the grossest things I've ever seen in a
Oh
movie.
yeah.
He pins her to the freezer door and then she's stuck there because it's frozen.
Kind of a clever thing, I gotta say. I've never
Also,
seen that
like
kind of thing.
food related. You
Yes.
know, there's some themes that run throughout this
Oh
movie.
yeah, good call.
Lizzie's got fight though. Like I'm not sure I could have pulled this off, but
Right.
she rips herself free.
She really pulls it off.
Oh my god! And it's such a gross effect. Um,
Yeah.
Tearing off these layers of skin,
Uh,
only to find that she can't call for help. She doesn't have a voice. She tries to escape out the back toward her car, and then she realizes she doesn't have her keys. Then her headlights come on, her engine is revving up. It's Carver. He's got the
mhm.
keys, he's got the car, and he's after her. So in desperation, she scrambles to try to hide in the dumpster. Here it comes. But Carver has other plans. He slams his car right into the dumpster. She's climbing in, dropping the lid down somehow in such a brutal way that it slices Lizzie clean in half. I think this is the most unrealistic kill.
Okay, I'm glad the way you put that because I was also very confused by the physics of this because
Yeah,
like
no,
I'm watching 1 minute she's normal and then she's just
nothing.
cut in
There's
half and
nothing
I'm like,
sharp. There's
no,
nothing
I
sharp.
assumed that like he like crushed her, but no, she like literally got sliced in half.
By the door, yeah, I had to
Yeah,
rewind it and watch. But
very strange.
yeah, how a dumpster could do that, I don't know. I don't think it's really possible. But I do want to point out an important thing.
Hmm.
This is the third movie that we've reviewed in which a person is cut in half
I was
vertically.
just gonna say, was this an homage to Club
If
Dread?
you are, I mean, I can only hope so. If you're interested in keeping score at home, the other two movies were Club Dread and The First Omen,
That's
decades apart in
right.
the making, but we did view them back to back on this show, and I don't think that can be a coincidence.
No, both really good scenes in those movies too. Those are standout
Amazing.
scenes.
Yeah, for sure. Something just universally terrifying to humans, the idea of being ripped in half.
Right. And then what happens to her body?
Oh, yeah. So Carver hangs her bottom half up on the Right Mart sign just to make things really super clear and make
Uh-huh.
sure that no one in town misses out on what the point of all this is.
Right.
But that given it like it takes them an awfully long time to get on the right trail.
Sure.
But there's reasons for that. The sheriff launches an investigation after they put together that Lizzie, the victim, was highly involved in the Black Friday catastrophe. Then the teenagers get tagged again. The investigation will get a boost from Jessica because the sheriff convinces her. who try to uncover the supposedly lost security footage from that fateful night, and she ends up agreeing to do it. So, as usual in this kind of movie, like everyone is a suspect now.
Yes.
Also, like with that Carver mask that anyone could have, you know, it's going to be a hard case to crack, it seems like.
At this point in the movie, I was getting major Scream vibes, like throughout a good chunk of this movie, and in the best possible ways. I just think we haven't had a movie. I haven't seen a movie
Yet.
like this in a long time, and even like when we were talking about like Lizzie's scene, like what's going to happen, but it's still incredibly tense and kind of
Yes.
entertaining. Like
Yes.
it's very formulaic, but like I don't know if that's a credit to Eli Roth, but like you're still interested, even though you know what's about to happen. And I don't know if that's just, again, the director or whatever, or just this kind of movie. It's just a very specific kind of movie, and it works really well, I think.
It's very formulaic, but it's I think very fresh in a lot of the details
Maybe,
that
yeah,
makes
maybe
it,
that's it.
and it exploits some of the tropes, like when you see her alone in the diner,
Yes.
I almost laughed knowing that she's going to die. Sounds horrible, but
Yeah,
like
I know. Yeah.
it's like an inside joke in the horror fan,
Hmm.
world. It's always somebody closing up at night or the last person at work.
And even this scene where he's like, he's questioning the teens, very similar to Scream again. They're all going one at a
Right.
time, going to like, and it's everyone's kind of starts finger pointing and it becomes a whole thing. There's
And
a lot of
Scream
tension.
itself was also an homage as well as a satire and a
Yes.
meta like critique all in one.
Which is why it was so fresh at the time, and that's why this kind of feels kind of fresh because it's bringing that back a little bit, and it's been in
Right.
a fresh way.
But not in a copycat way.
Right.
So now Manny gets a scene. We mentioned there was going to be a Manny.
I
So
gotta look at my list. Yes, he was the
over
security
at
guard.
Manny,
Okay.
the fearless security guard who bravely ran for the hills
Mm-hmm.
when the riot erupted. He's a funny character because he fancies himself very brave and tough, which
Mm-hmm.
is the source of some of the humor. He's gearing
Yes.
up for a vacation. So he's packing his bag and he hears something in the house and he heads to investigate, which gives us one of the best lines in the movie.
I'm a security guard. I kill people every fucking day.
I'm like, oh
It
my
was
God,
so
that's
good.
priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He quickly learns that he is indeed not alone. The Carver catches him off guard, driving an electric mixer straight into his gut. Ding, ding, ding. I got a thing off my list
Oh,
already.
good call. And I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad you confirmed that too, because I put on my notes like I think it's a mixer. It happens very fast.
I think that's what it is too.
Yes. But what I really like too is that the involvement of the cat, because the cat's sitting on the counter in the kitchen and he's kind of like peering into the kitchen. He's like, all right, where is he? Where is he? And the cat kind of looks over to like show him and then he just gets killed. It's kind of great.
Yeah. Somebody said, I don't want to reveal which character said it. It might reveal something of the
Sure.
plot, but somebody said that how delightful it was to work with a cat and it was like the best trained cat ever.
Oh, wow.
So I thought that was very sweet. And I was worried about the cat because I was like, he's going on vacation. Is somebody going to come feed the cat? Is he taking the
Right.
cat on vacation? What's going to happen? Also, he gets beheaded.
Yes.
But back to the cat. Just as I was worrying that, then the killer feeds the cat. And I was like, okay, that's thoughtful. And it also makes me think he's not just a sociopath. He's targeting people very specifically.
Right. And I thought the scene was funny too, where you see the cat eating the food in the background is just like the severed body of
Yeah.
Manny.
Cat's gotta eat though. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
in the very next shot we see Manny's head on a Thanksgiving plate looking horrified.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jessica steals the missing security footage. So it turns out that Kathleen was worried about, the store's liability and reputation. So she like deleted the footage, but there's a backup and it gets stored for a year and it's in her father's. I mean, it's probably on the cloud. They probably could have gotten it from somewhere else, but in the movie
Right.
world, it's on the father's computer in the
Right.
study, which is not really how anything works anymore,
No.
unless he's got like a server under the desk. He didn't seem
Yeah.
like the type though.
No, very doubtful.
With this footage on the table, Jessica and the gang, the Bloodhound gang, start speculating about suspects. So, like, Mitch is on the list.
Sure.
He's a, full on anti right mark crusader.
Right.
Then there's Ryan, who's Jessica's boyfriend. So that's awkward. But also, like, there's this weird moment on the video where he's like chats with Doug, who's the
Right.
security guard who dies like seconds later. So I don't know, something suspicious about that.
I'm not sure why that seems suspicious.
Because they just wanted to throw him in the
Yeah, I
mix.
guess so. Yeah.
And he's like not super friendly.
No.
I mean, he's all right.
Yeah.
He does say some dick things, but it's more like defending himself.
Sure.
He gets mean pretty fast.
Right.
For example, right after this, there's a scene of Ryan and Bobby just hating each other for dumb reasons.
Oh, is this when Bobby comes back to town? Like this first time
Bobby's back.
Jess talks to him outside of the police station, I think, for the first time. They take a
Either
walk
that just
together or
happened or it's
something.
about to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's an encounter with Ryan and Bobby, and they're
Yeah.
just being dumb.
Yeah.
So next on the holiday hit list is Lonnie. So there's a Manny. We did Manny. Now we're with Lonnie. Lonnie is actually that kid from the rival high school, the original riot starter, kind of, and who's like, "Hey, they're inside. Let us all in." And his girlfriend, whose name is Amy, which I had to go back and look up.
I'm not gonna lie, I did not know who Lonnie was at this point in the movie. Like we cut to this guy, he's a gym teacher, right?
I think he's just a kid.
Oh, is he? He looks like he was directing. Yeah, you must be right. Yeah. Okay. But I had no idea who he was. I'm like, should I know who this person is? But it didn't really matter at that point.
It's a pretty bizarre, kind of comic scene.
Yes.
The two of them are hanging out. I guess were they like there's an auditorium, but there's a trampoline.
Yep. There's like an empty auditorium except for a trampoline, and he goes to sit on the stage
It's
and
so weird. Yeah. And so she's on the trampoline and she's like, watch my moves or whatever. And he's like, all right. And then but like while she's just doing her very basic like trampoline tricks, like nothing really
no.
impressive. She has a cheerleading uniform on. So like while she's midair, the killer sneaks up behind Lonnie and gives him a little chiropractic adjustment, the kind that you don't come back from.
Spins his head 180 degrees.
All the way around. Yes.
Yeah.
And Amy just keeps on bouncing until, and this is like pretty nightmare fuelish.
Yeah.
The killer jabs a knife up through the trampoline. It's a knife, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Knife. So first, like, oh, her foot comes down on it. It's so painful, and
Uh,
then that makes her fall, and she gets more stab wounds. And anyway, this is somehow worse than the electric mixer to the gut, I have to say.
I agree. This is the one kill that I had heard about. This was like the
Oh,
flagship one, I think. I feel
trampoline
like
kill.
every slasher movie kind of has one of those that's like the most unique, I guess. Did you notice how like efficient he is? I feel like all of his kills are super fast for the most part. Like if he's able to.
Yeah, even though he's under the trampoline stabbing upward, like he ends her pretty quickly, like solid stabbing.
And even the other guy just like spins his head around, boom, moves on. And
Oh
like two
yeah.
seconds later he's killing her. Like very fast.
That takes a lot of strength.
Yeah, for sure.
So then Jessica teams up with Evan and Gabby to check out the high school. Is this their own high school or is this the high school where those two people were just murdered, Lonnie and Amy?
You know what? Now that you say that, it must be. Yes,
Because
because the
yeah,
police
otherwise
are
it doesn't make
outside.
sense.
Right. I
Yeah.
didn't even think of that till just now. That makes sense though.
So they go inside and then of course once they're in there, Jessica splits off from the couple and you seasoned horror movie watchers know what that means. The killer seizes the opportunity and ambushes Evan and Gabby, takes them down. So Jessica texts Gabby then and hears the phone ding in a dark hallway. She finds it in a garbage bin, bends over to get it, and when she stands up, killer is behind her. And I'm like, wait, it's too early. But yes, she escapes. So this leads to a great scene when she's hiding in a
Yes.
cosmetology classroom with her head among the mannequin heads, like
I
many,
loved
many
this.
mannequin heads that are used
Hmm.
for cosmetology teaching, which totally reminds me of E.T. like hiding in the closet with the
Oh
stuffies.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
In a lighter way. Yeah.
But it's cute. It's a very cute scene. Like her facial expression is very funny, like while she's
Yeah.
trying to hide.
I love
And
that.
she also gets to attack the killer with hairspray. which I
Hmm.
appreciate, and it's
Sure.
surprisingly effective, more than you would think. It
Yeah.
at least creates enough of a distraction for her to get away. I don't think it really does damage.
No.
Too bad it wasn't bear spray.
Oh yeah.
There's this police scene at the high school, and for some reason, Bobby is there, and he's asking Ryan about his conversation with the security guard on the footage. And Ryan was like, "Yeah, I was just picking up drugs."
Yeah.
And the drugs turn out to be like Adderall, and they end up fighting, and then kind of verbally, Ryan's like,
Adderall? Yes, Adderall. That is what smart kids do, so we can get into Ivy League schools and guys like you can tow our Porsches.
and I'm like, all right. I mean,
That was
I
great.
don't like him either, but he's a little
No,
bit justified.
for sure.
Yeah. So they're like starting to fight, and Jessica, yells at them. I really don't enjoy that relationship or her relationship with them, really.
No, the whole love triangle gets very stale,
It's
very
it's
like
unnecessary.
it felt like a CW show, honestly. And a lot of this movie actually kind of did. It just felt like
Mm,
teen drama that was just silly. And I know the whole point of it was to try to get you to think different people are going to be the killer, of course.
yeah.
I agree. It's kind of a weak point.
So meanwhile, Yulia's Russian dad has had enough of the Plymouth Horror Show, and he whisks her away from the crowd. He's like, "We're going to Florida." Except he says it like Russian, and it's very cute.
This is another character I did not know who she was at this point in the movie because she doesn't do much earlier on. She's in the car
She's
earlier,
in
and
the
that's
car.
about
That's it.
it. And
That's
I'm like,
totally
who
it.
the hell is Yulia? And who's this Russian guy? Like, I was so confused.
Basically, they needed a certain number of people to,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Sacrifice to the horror gods.
there's a minor character I haven't mentioned until now because, oh my God, so many characters, whose dad has a gun store. So the teenagers visit him at his house while he's throwing a party to buy some guns or borrow some guns.
And this is McCarty?
McCarty, that's
McCarthy?
right. I didn't
Yeah.
even get his name down.
Hmm.
So there's that. So the teenagers have this encounter and borrow some guns. That's
Sure.
all. Then Yulia is packing for a non-consensual move to Florida. On the phone, I think video chat, right? With like FaceTime with
Yes, with
Jessica.
Scuba and Jess. Yeah.
Yeah. Jessica and Scuba are together. And her dad, like, they look like they have means. There's
Oh,
even
yeah.
a security guard on the scene. Even so, like, the killer is able to break into their house, gun down the guard, and then Yulia's father when he investigates,
Hmm.
which she's not aware of because at first I thought he was using a silencer, but because of what happens later, I think maybe he fired tranquilizer darts.
Yes, he uses those a
He
few
doesn't want
times.
to kill people that are not the people that he's targeting.
That's interesting because we don't see the dad anymore after that, really, right? But it is a tranquilizer dart.
I don't think there are any scenes where he's not that important, you know?
That's true. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think of that. That
Yeah.
there are only certain
It could
people
have
that he
been a
wants to kill.
silencer. It was
Yeah.
very silent though. It was
No, I
like
agree
not
though. I
even
also thought it
yeah.
was a tranquilizer dart. So this is a tense scene. I like this. This is another one of those where it's like kind of what's going to happen, but man,
Yeah.
it's tense.
It feels very like action thriller. Like
Yeah, there's
in
lots of
that
like angles, like looking around corners and like
it's not a
shadows and
typical
stuff.
horror scene. It's
Yes,
kind
I
of like
agree.
I have a very particular set of skills kind of
Hmm.
movie,
Yeah,
which I taken. Is that what they're called?
yeah. Hmm.
Okay, God, I pulled that out of my
Well done.
long-term storage way
This
in
is
the
a little
back.
bit more of like a more drawn out scene, which I actually like. Again, a lot of the
Yeah.
scenes are very quick. This one seemed a little longer, which is good.
Yeah. So then he goes after Yulia and it's very bizarre. And this has to be, has to be just for laughs. But those corn cob holders,
Uh-huh.
he like stabs her in the ears with them, which is very like cringy, like makes me go, ew. But I don't actually think that they would go in that deep. I mean, they might puncture the eardrums, but
They're about an inch, I imagine. I agree. They
yeah,
wouldn't go too far, but yeah, she got corn cobbed.
for whatever reason. I mean, it was really unnecessary.
I
But
agree.
since she's doing video chat, Jessica and Scuba realize that she's getting attacked. And so they race to her house. But they are too late. And the killer throws Yulia onto a buzzsaw and she is disemboweled. That is probably
Whew.
why we never see her father again, even if he's alive. Because
Yeah.
he didn't have a reason to be in the movie anymore.
No. That was quick and gnarly, I gotta say. He just tosses her and runs away.
So he's right there. He could have taken Jessica and Scuba right then.
Sure.
For some reason, I think he likes to do these things in discrete events.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Except for at the high school when he did try to attack Jessica.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Maybe he doesn't want to go up against both of them at once.
Could be.
Although he has done that also in the past.
At the end of this scene, Scuba is laying there with like Yulia's body, like holding her body, and he goes,
What do I do, Jess? Jess, what do I do?
that was like a really interesting line because it's like really authentic
Mm-hmm.
for being such a silly movie. I'm like, that's kind of like I feel like how someone might actually act
Yeah,
in a crazy
right.
scene. Like again, not the acting in this movie's fine, but I just thought that line delivery of that was actually really good. Stood out to me.
Good point. I always appreciate a line like that.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the police are sort of desperate and they hatch this zany plan to draw the killer out, of course, during Plymouth Thanksgiving parade. And you know what? I was hoping there was going to be a parade. I didn't put this on one of my 3 things because I
Uh-huh.
thought it's probably too much of a gimme.
Sure.
But I was like, please let there be a parade in the finale. And here we are, almost. So they're actually pretty insistent that Jessica and her family and Scuba act as human bait in the parade, which is very, I don't know, ethically questionable.
Yeah, not very realistic, but happens in like every movie.
I know they all sign on to it like without too much argumentation.
Yeah.
Now it's like day of the parade. Jessica and the family are dressed up in like pilgrim clothes, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I think it's that McCarty guy who just shows up randomly and he's like, "Here, Jessica, please take my father's ring that he wore during the Iraq War, which
Yes.
supposedly kept him alive. You can wear it for good luck." I only mention this because it's important later.
I put my notes very fucking random. Like he just comes out of nowhere.
I think they're like, we've got to seed this thing, this
Yeah.
instrument in the
Chekhov's ring.
plot. Yeah,
There's multiple Chekhov items in this movie.
you usually are in a good movie. So then Jessica is like on the float, and I feel like I've seen almost this identical scene in other movies. Like
Sure.
they're in a very public place, and she keeps seeing people in the Carver masks everywhere, which is pretty disturbing. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's sort of like a fake out where one of them like runs out, but it turns out to be Mitch who jumps into the middle of the parade, like just to protest, but he's otherwise like harmless. So I guess now we know Mitch is not the killer, which
Yeah.
was my number one theory. I'm embarrassed to admit now, but I'll tell you why later.
I thought it was strange too, because you see a bunch of people in Carver masks, and the cops are like start pulling the masks off of people. But it's like, what are you looking
Mm.
for? Because you're not going to know it's a killer.
Exactly.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like, okay, can't be you. It's like
Maybe seeing if they're on the suspect list or whatever.
maybe. I don't know. I thought that was kind of silly, but
So the killer appears in a disturbing, cheerful clown costume,
I
and
love this.
I did not like this because I feel like the killer disguise should be consistent, and like this totally violates like the Scream formula. But I mean, it's kind of smart because they're looking for the guy in the mask now. But as the clown, he gets sneak into the middle of everything, and
Mhm.
then it is a pretty like
It's a twist. I was not expecting it.
yeah, it's a pretty good scene.
Yeah,
Like, I was just bothered by the costume change, I guess.
sure.
Oh my god, like the first thing he does as soon as you see him, he decapitates a poor like turkey
Oh,
mascot in front of the
yeah.
crowd, like literally for no reason, right? Like so
Oh,
far
yeah.
he's not been killing anyone that's not a target, but
Sure.
I couldn't figure out that this guy, I don't even know who it was in turkey costume.
They showed him earlier. I wish I would have noted who it was because I think they show him putting the head on at some point, but I didn't pay attention.
Maybe he really did have something to do with something, but
Well, I
like it's
feel like
never acknowledged.
everyone at the town was pretty much at the right mark, though. I feel like so everyone was kind of there.
Yeah, but like
I don't know.
very specific individuals were blamed for something.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and see if I like figure out who that was.
Then like he does his like Joker thing and starts like hurling smoke bombs and like people are scattering, there's panic and bedlam, and he is able to like shoot the family and Scuba with tranquilizer darts as they're trying to get away. Somehow he takes them all.
Yeah.
I guess he takes the car that they're in.
Yes, he drives away with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then someone also gets impaled by the ship, which was just crazy. Like the person driving the float
Oh,
gets impaled by the front of like it's just mass carnage in like a minute.
I don't even remember that one.
Oh yeah, there was a lot going on.
The next thing that we see is Kathleen, who, if you don't remember, is Thomas's wife, the stepmother-ish of Jessica.
Jessica, yeah.
And she is waking up in the killer's basement. And he has kind of gone like full Thanksgiving chef and has prepped her like a turkey.
This scene had me laughing.
This is pretty wild. So she manages a brief, very tense escape. And there's a very cool scene where she's like hiding against a wall and through you
Hmm.
can see the killer through the doorway. And then she thinks she's safe, but then he like somehow stabs the pitchfork like very cleanly through the wall, like right next to where
Oh yeah,
she's
she
standing.
runs upstairs. She kind of escapes upstairs. Yeah, and then she's hiding behind a wall, and you see him looking like, should I walk forward? And then he walks away, and you think he's gone, and then he stabs
Yeah.
through the wall. So he's
Yeah.
a smart guy. This guy
That was a
clearly
pretty
is.
good scare. And then
Yeah.
she manages to run out the door and he throws the pitchfork like he's like stream fishing and like
Yeah.
like reels her in
Uh-huh.
and then pops her into a giant oven, very Hansel and Gretel style, a la Wes
Yes.
Craven's New Nightmare, and cooks her alive. Then he presents her charred corpse to a horrified Thomas, Jessica, Scuba, Evan, and Gabby. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, I think you got it.
These are all the people that he has captive around the table. Yeah, I forgot that Evan and Gabby even existed, and
Right.
I thought that they were dead. So, but they are alive and there. And I think they only really serve one purpose.
Did you notice during the scene where he's putting her in the oven, I think he takes his mask off and like singes it?
Yeah, and but then he gets a fresh one.
I didn't know what that was all about.
I did not figure that out.
I thought that was straight. Yeah, he's got like a stack of them fresh masks. I'm sure he's
Yes,
gone through a lot of these.
he's not a sociopath, but there is something very weird about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, to make things like even darker and more critical of modern capitalist culture, in my opinion, he starts live streaming his
Yes.
Thanksgiving feast. And he's got Amy. Remember Amy? She actually did not die.
Right.
And he had been keeping her in the refrigerator. So he has her chilled red wine.
Yeah. I like that line. That was good.
He slashes her throat and drains her blood into a wine glass. And then he smashes Evan's skull. All of this is on camera in front of a live as well as an in person traumatized audience.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets a little like, uh,
Yeah.
the whole family, they're all around a table. In case I didn't mention that, there's this whole like Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving
setting
dinner.
with Kathleen, human turkey in the middle. It's like super gross.
You have to like keep track of all the characters.
Everyone's got their hands tied behind their backs and their
Yes.
mouths are gagged. So that's the setup. So remember, Jessica has this good luck Iraq ring. Turns out it has a tiny knife in it, and I don't think that anyone knows that, including her, until that moment when
Right.
her hands are behind her back. So you see the little tiny knife pop out, and I looked this up, and you can actually buy these rings with
Oh,
tiny
I'm
little
sure you
knives in
can.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be afraid that I would hurt myself with it
Yeah, I
by
agree.
accident. But she is able to like covertly set herself loose, and then she hands off the ring knife to Scuba.
Mm-hmm.
He starts to, cut his binds. Meanwhile, John Carver, we'll call him, is carving up the Kathleen turkey,
Oh, bad.
and he's about to like force Thomas to eat some. So at that moment, Scuba breaks free and makes a very brave attack on the killer. In all of this chaos, Jessica manages to just run away, and that leads the killer on a chase, drawing him away from the others. And now the showdown kind of barrels towards the finale. Jessica runs through the woods, which I appreciate because it's nice to have that in a slasher.
Yeah. Check that box.
It's like a box that needed to be checked.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not for long. She gets to a fence and then climbs over and has like kind of a fall that looks very painful.
Wait, before we go on, did you notice they tried to make a big deal of her bracelet, which I'm assuming her mom, her deceased mom, she's dead, right? Her mother had passed away, right? And that's why Kathleen's in
Oh,
the picture.
that's
Because
right.
like
Yeah.
there's a scene earlier where she's going to bed, she like kisses the charm on. It's like, good night, mom, or something, or
Isn't there like a picture of her mom in there, or did
oh,
I make that
maybe
up?
like a locket. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. But her mom gave it to her. That gets caught on the top of the fence. I thought they were trying to make this another Chekhov's. Actually, it kind of is. Yeah, later.
Okay, I think I missed that one,
Okay,
so
I'll
be
I'll
sure
bring it
to.
up when it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she gets caught on the top of the fence and then gets away. I do have to say I really like that they gave her a lot of agency in this movie. Like she's fast as
Yeah.
hell. She clears the fence really fast. She's not one of these like ditzy, tropey, like you see
Oh,
in a lot of
definitely
like
not.
Scream
Yeah.
movies. Like she's like a really good
That would
character.
have ruined the movie for me.
I
I
agree.
really needed her to be a good character in
Yes.
contrast to like almost everyone else.
Linda Hamilton and Children of the Corn.
I just mean in this movie, like,
Yeah, no.
gosh, because there's so many unlikable
I know.
characters.
For sure.
Ah, yeah.
She's good.
But anyway, the place that she's run up upon is the like deserted looking, I guess, parade warehouse where they
Right.
had originally there was like a police plan that they were gonna try to lead the killer there and then trick him.
This geography lost me for a second.
It
It took
was
me
confusing.
like I once they got in there, I'm like, okay, I get it now, but I'm like, where the hell is she? I couldn't figure it out. Did we say where they were at, where John Carver had them held hostage at?
I thought it was his house, but
That
perhaps
was
not.
that cabin that was vandalized earlier.
Oh, I
Yes.
never put that
Yeah, because
together.
when they go
Oh
upstairs,
my
you see the
gosh.
graffiti on the wall, and that's where he was holding them. That's probably where that's where
Oh,
his
because okay, well, I'm not going to mention that now.
it was underground too, I think. Like his whole thing was underground.
Yes, but there were good foreshadowing lines for that I have just now
Yes.
realized, and I will mention those later
Yes,
if I
please do.
remember. But yeah, there's a lot of good lines.
Hmm.
So anyway, in the like parking area of this warehouse, she sees the cop car and she finds the sheriff knocked out cold, it seems, outside of his car.
Hmm.
Then she catches a glimpse of like Bobby lurking around, and so for a second everything clicks. He must
Hmm.
be the killer because that makes perfect sense for some reason. I don't know.
I just gotta say, the height thing does not make any sense. Bobby is tiny. He does not measure up to the Carver at all in terms of stature.
You do that in one of the Scream movies too, though.
You can't fake stature though. I mean, what do you wear lifts? I mean, that's
I wondered that in whatever Scream movie that was,
maybe I didn't see that one. I'll have to.
where I forget, but the killer was a girl and she was not
Oh, that
very
was
tall.
4. I think it's Emma Roberts' character, maybe in 4. That's the last one I saw. I didn't see 5 or 6.
A couple of those kind of run together, but
Right.
anyway, so she tries to confront him, and he vanishes into the shadows, and she's gonna go after him like she's pretty brave, I
Hmm.
think. But then the sheriff, he's okay, he's not dead, and he like grabs her, and I think he like goes into there's some shots fired, but like I think the story is Bobby gets away. And so the next scene, Jessica's at the police station, and there's some cops talking about how they're searching everywhere for Bobby,
Hmm.
and so he's supposedly on the run. And then the other cops leave the room, and Jessica's alone with the sheriff, and she notices something strange. So she's been like picking these thorns off of her pants while she's
Hmm.
sitting there, and she looks down and notices, I think there's one on like his pants cuff, and then there's some on his shoes,
Hmm.
and she's like, wait a minute. So it hits her like he was running through the woods, and I mean, couldn't he have been go in the woods on police business? I don't know, but for whatever reason,
Sure.
this is
Yeah.
it. This confirms it.
Yes.
And when he realizes that she's realized it, he does this villain thing where he tells the entire
Yes.
story with little to no prompting. So his motive, he was having an affair with Amanda, and she
Yep.
was pregnant when she died, fueling his thirst for vengeance. He even confesses to drugging Bobby just to keep suspicion off himself. But Jessica has one trick left up her sleeve.
Sure does.
She's been live streaming. How appropriate for this movie. His confession the entire time. So Newland, knowing the jig is up, snaps and tries to attack her. Right then, Bobby conveniently reappears, swooping in to help Jessica, and they race to his truck and escape. Except they don't, because Sheriff is one step ahead and he's already anchored the truck to a support beam, trapping them. Jessica springs into action and she loads a musket. I think she talks earlier in the movie about like having fired a musket once and it was a
Yes.
disaster. So that's
Yep.
kind of funny. She has trouble like loading it. I think she uses the ring somehow.
She actually, I think she puts the bracelet in there.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh God.
Yes,
Okay.
that was
Missed that.
so again, I don't know why she does that, but I
Just
must have.
getting tired by the end here.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. There's a lot of this whole chase thing goes on for a while.
And this whole scene, like, okay, so she aims.
They inflate a turkey, a large inflatable
Yeah.
turkey at some point. I think it's like distract him or something, or yeah. So that's in the equation.
But I have questions. So,
Sure.
yeah. So then when he gets close to the turkey, she takes her shot
Hmm.
and the float, the tank, everything like explodes in this fire explosion. But
Yep.
I thought floats were filled with helium. Like no one fills anything with hydrogen since the Hindenburg, right? Also, like all the float stuff is supposed to be like flame retardant.
Is helium not flammable?
It is not. It's one of the most stable gases in the universe.
Okay, good call. Yeah, that doesn't add up. I just
So,
assumed.
is this a mistake or a creative liberty or a joke? I could imagine it being any of those.
Sure, or all of them.
In the aftermath, Jessica is finally reunited with her friends who got freed. The police are assuring everyone that Newland is done for. The only thing left of him is ash. But as the dust settles, Jessica spots a firefighter with an axe, face hidden behind the mask. And it looks like it could be kind of like the sheriff. Could it be? I don't know.
I will say this scene, I guarantee this can't be a coincidence. This must be an homage to The Guest. At the very
Mm.
end of the movie, The Guest, this exact same scene happens. It's
I
shocking
feel like
how
this has been a few movies.
literally a firefighter that walks out and you think the main character may still be alive. And he comes out in a firefighter's outfit with his
There was
face.
a very recent movie that I talked about on this podcast. We didn't cover it, but I talked about it that also has that in the ending. But
Interesting.
I will not say which one it was
Okay.
because it's kind of new and
Fair enough.
it's a spoiler. But
Okay.
anyway, later on we see her trying to sleep. She's curled up beside Ryan, which I'm like, maybe if there's a sequel she can break up with him. But
Right.
her mind is still racing. She has a nightmare and a fully on fire Sheriff Newland steps out from her closet, leaving her to wonder if her Thanksgiving terror is truly over. What do you think about this ending, Bill?
I loved it. And I love the stylized credits that we get right after it. It's like
Yeah,
kind of
very
a
nice credits.
really cool, like cool illustrations of what's going on. Um, the ending worked. I mean, it's so typical. The whole movie is just so on point with like what you'd expect, but man, it just really had me even towards the end. I don't know. I think I just wanted to watch a movie like this. I haven't seen a movie like this in a long time.
Right.
And even if I knew the familiar beats, especially the ending, I thought it ended well. Even the silly jump scare at the end, it's like, yep, you know it's going to be a jump scare, and then it ends. Perfect. What'd you
I
think?
think it's very special filmmakers who can make a movie like this work.
Yes.
Because either it's just so bad it's good or
Right.
and this is not that.
No.
This is like a different level. I think they did a fair job with the end. So I did not guess that the sheriff was going to be the killer. So I
I
mean I
didn't
did
either.
like consider it um although like the whole affair with Amanda thing seems kind of forced. It's not really like
And the fact
very
that she's pregnant, like, I don't know. It seems like they just threw a bunch of stuff in there. Although I will say I was going to rewatch this movie today and I only got through like the first, like that dinner scene.
mm,
And it's funny because you see Amanda, she kind of like invites the sheriff in and she goes, "Oh, you can cook. Well, I imagine you're not going to be single much longer." So there's like little things like that where you're like,
oh, I
okay.
didn't catch that. See?
And then also Mitch, they're like, "Oh, Mitch, are you going to carve a turkey? You're such a good carver or something." And he's like, I guess I could carve it. He just keeps saying the word carve. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like a
Mm,
red herring too. But I think there's probably a lot of that.
Yeah, so I caught some of those.
So wait, who did you think it was going to be?
I'll tell you, but
Okay.
first, I also rewatched a bit of it
Hmm.
to see if was this hinted at the beginning or foreshadowed or anything. And there's a scene early on in the diner where the sheriff puts on the John Carver mask and he says,
Oh, right.
"Yeah, I could get used to it." And then right at that moment, the song on the jukebox has the lyrics that say, "But then I bury the hatchet."
Oh, interesting.
But then I bury the hatchet right in your head.
And then another funny line I caught on the rewatch is when Kathleen is talking to the sheriff right before they try to film the commercial that didn't work.
Uh-huh.
And she's talking about her grandmother's recipe and how she's like anxious about cooking all this food for upcoming Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
And the sheriff says,
Oh, I'm sure you'll make an excellent dinner, Kathleen.
Oh,
so
that's so
those are
good.
very nicely placed, funny things.
Yes.
Also, as I often tend to think with like these revenge type slasher movies, what the killer has done seems like just way too much work for this motivation. Like I think the
Sure, sure.
motivation is a little thin in
Right.
comparison with like the hugely effortful, is that a word?
Sure.
Effortful and creative like killing and kidnapping spree with all of these like live prisoners,
Hmm.
preparing a dinner party on top of everything. I mean, that's a dinner party. That's a lot of work. And cooking a whole human being, Jesus, like cooking a turkey is hard enough. Doesn't it take like a day?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How did he manage all of that so fast, by the way?
Well, and his day job too. He's still a sheriff too. So like you gotta slide this in
Right.
off hours
He was
too.
very busy. Like he must have been a very good manager of time. So I actually thought the killer was going to turn out to be Mitch because
Okay.
it was so obvious like that he was being set up to look like it was him.
Sure.
So I was like, that's what the movie wants us to think.
Right.
So it's so obvious that we're supposed to think, surely it can't be him. So it has to
Sure.
be him, like reverse psychology.
Uh-huh.
But I got out psychologied on that one. But I thought the ending was fine, and I like that there's a little ambiguity that he could still be alive out
Sure.
there somewhere because to me that's part of the horror. Like, what else could happen? What's coming next? You know?
Apparently they're gonna be making another one of these in the
Huh.
next couple of years. I don't know if it's like a sequel, but it's gonna be another one of these, which
It'll be
never
fun to
know.
find out
I
where they
agree.
go with that.
So I
Um,
thought it was going to be I fell for the Ryan angle. Like early on, as soon as they
oh,
introduced him outside of Right Mart,
yeah.
like
He's weird.
they framed him strangely, and I'm like, he just
Mhm.
seems a little cold and off, and I fell right into that trap. But I
Quick
also
to
thought,
anger.
yes, quick to anger, and I also thought like in Scream, Skeet Ulrich's character. So they set him up to like, okay, he's going to be the guy, the obvious choice, but then they walk it back and you find out that he's not going to be, but then he ends up being. That's what I thought they were going to do with Ryan. Again, like the flip, of like, nope,
Yeah.
it can't be, and then it is. So we were both wrong. I don't think I suspected the sheriff at all, and I feel really dumb looking back because he's in so much of the movie and he's like the most high profile actor in this movie too. So it's like
Right. Usually
usually you
that's the
follow
key.
that.
But there were a few famous people in this
Yeah.
movie.
Although
Maybe not as
most of the teens were they don't have a long they don't have a lot of work, I gotta say. Like Addison Rae
right.
is a famous influencer, but like outside of that, the other ones I was looking at their filmography, like some really small credits up till this point. So mostly kind of unknown teens. The adults more so, I think, had were a little more well known. But yeah, I fell for it. This movie got me, I gotta say. But there's so many damn characters too, I gotta say. Like it's kind of a cheap
Also,
way of
yeah,
doing it. So many characters.
that helps a lot.
Yeah,
So maybe don't give it too much credit, but it sure
yeah,
was a fun ride.
I agree for sure. Do we want to jump to ratings?
Sure.
All right, do you want to go first?
Sure.
All right, fire away.
So, as you know, I'm not a slasher person unless we're talking like the original Halloween.
Sure.
I am definitely that person. And I tend to like those kind of movies as like throughout history as it gets more and more modern because it feels like they have to up the gore to have like a shock effect, and that's just
Hmm.
not what I enjoy. That said, I think this was an above average slasher for me. And I don't think like the gore was abused. It was always like purposeful and realistic, or at least like funny.
Hmm.
And it was a fun like homage to those slashers of the 1980s, like a different period of time, like where it was okay to have all these silly kills,
Right. Yeah.
But it was also like a very accessible critique of US consumerism, which I always appreciate. It also had a pretty good cast as far as slashers go. Like, even though there were some unknowns, I don't think there were any bad actors.
I
I
agree.
don't
Totally.
remember seeing any bad acting, even in
Mm-mm.
like the pretend TV news segments, which is usually where you can catch some bad
Sure.
acting.
Right.
Because it's like, the last thought
Hmm.
put into the movie. Um, and there were like some pretty unexpectedly creative takes on things, as well as like lots of outright absurdity that kept things pretty funny. I would personally even classify it as a horror comedy, but it is not listed that way, at least not on IMDb,
Hmm.
where it's tagged as a slasher teen horror mystery thriller.
Yes.
I don't know where it debuted. Did it go straight to streaming?
No, it was in theaters.
Was it? Oh, okay. I don't know if it was listed differently in theaters or at whatever festival, but it definitely has comedy feel to me.
Sure.
So I am going to give this one a 3, which is high for me for a
Wow.
slasher, and good enough GPA for state school.
Very nice. I like it.
I had to put that in there since there's an Ivy League joke in the
Yes.
movie. What did you think? I'm curious.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised you gave a slasher a 3. I'm just gonna say that right out of the gate. I was anticipating what you were gonna give it. Um, I was very pleasantly surprised by this movie. And my rating for this one, again, I have to take into account Eli Roth's filmography because I've seen most of his movies and he's just such a distinctive director. This movie just gave me all the feels. Like I said, it felt like a Scream movie again, which like an original Scream movie, not, one of the 5 or 6 sequels. And I had such a good time watching it, trying to figure out, clues, kind of, playing the detective. The acting was great. One thing that I was super surprised by was the use of technology did not get annoying for how much they use like phones and live streaming and all that, which normally I hate in movies because it's
Yeah.
just overused and it looks silly and it's such a stupid device to use in a movie.
Yep.
Um, it worked really well, surprisingly, in this. And I loved all the Thanksgiving puns. Like it
Yeah.
was so fun. And it's nice to have a group of characters that they're not super deep. So you don't get emotionally invested in them necessarily. So like when they get stalked and killed, it's like you said, it's kind of like humorous, or you're kind of just figuring out like you're waiting to see how it's going to happen. You don't feel necessarily bad for them because they're very
Yeah.
shallow characters. But at the same time, they're still characters you want to follow in the movie. So it's like a fine line where like you don't want the characters to be so annoying that you're just like, I can't watch this. But at the same time, you don't want it to be like super deep because when those kill scenes do come, you want to like have fun with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Overall, I thought it was a really well done movie. Again, he somehow took a very formulaic type plot and somehow made it his own. And again, I think that speaks to his knowledge of horror films, like going back in history and knowing how to like put those little like Easter eggs in and like, homages to other movies, but doing it in like a very tasteful way where it doesn't seem like he's ripping something off. The only thing that I would really knock it for is that again, the love triangle that just felt like a CW
Yeah.
show. And the drama kind of came off kind of clunky, I guess.
Yeah.
Wasn't very engaging. I understand the plot kind of needed it, but it just those parts just kind of got really boring to me. But outside of that, this movie just moved real well. I feel like from start to finish. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Wow. So that's a 3.25 for our listeners at home who don't do math on a scale of 5 screams.
Yeah. So I think that's probably middle of middle upper, I would say, probably for the films we've
You're the
watched so far.
scorekeeper.
Yeah, I don't
So
know. I'd have to look.
you'll have to report back.
I'll have to report back. But yeah, I was like I said, very pleasantly surprised. This one was not on my radar, and I was kind of happy when you suggested because it gave me a reason to actually go back and watch it because it's kind of been in the back of my mind.
I would like more movies like this to be made. I think they
Yes.
have great mainstream appeal.
Hmm.
Also, like, he picked a topic that, at least when he started making the movie, it was a very hot topic because there were actual Black Friday deaths.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's where the idea came from. So it was something that, like, a lot of people were aware of and concerned about, and that can really be like the kind of like zeitgeist of like public fear can be a very good like core for a
Sure.
horror movie.
Well, even if you think to like at the beginning of the pandemic when people had to rush to the grocery stores to get stuff, when
Oh
there was like
God,
food
yeah.
shortages. I mean, it's not quite the same, but it's that same like psychology where people are like, I need to get everything because I don't know what's going to happen. It's like they turn into different people kind of in a way,
Those were weird times. You're
they
right.
were.
Yeah. And like people would fight over like you'd see like videos that people would post of like someone with a like one of those like a flat pack like trolley of their own like
Yes.
hoarding all the toilet paper from
Uh-huh.
one grocery, yeah, and then like
Yeah.
other people in the parking lot would confront them. That
Right.
is like an original American horror right there.
Exactly. I'm sure someone will make a movie about it at some point. Uh, as I think back to this film though, like it should not have worked. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
is so silly when you think about it, but it's just so well executed. Even all the Thanksgiving puns, even his outfit, like it seems silly, but it just freaking works somehow. It's just, I don't know,
it
boggles
could
my
have
mind.
easily been a forgettable B movie, I think.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. If you had another director, this would not have worked out as well. I feel like this is a total director's movie. So I'm so happy we did it.
High five. Woo.
Do you have any closing thoughts about Thanksgiving, or should we announce next week's film?
Go for it. I think I've said my piece.
Your piece? All right. So this concludes part one of the gravying. Next episode, we will continue our theme of Thanksgiving vengeance with 2019's Into the Dark feature length episode entitled Pilgrim. Please like and subscribe our show on your preferred podcast platform and share our show with a friend. Until next time, stay spooky.
See ya.